Oh, go. All right, everybody. Oops, that's pretty loud. Welcome, everyone. Please find your seats and we get started. Eric? Okay, welcome everyone. Today is our annual meeting and elections and the annual Turtle Awards. I'm Kitty Piercy, City Club President, for a few more moments. It's been my pleasure to serve this year through many changes. City Club has gone from a virtual to a hybrid model of both live and virtual. We think it's time, I'm getting a little feedback here, guys. We think it's time to come together again in person to have important civil and civic conversations. If I had my way, we might not call this a club, which seemed a little exclusive, but rather we might call it a community conversation that we are all invited to. City Club thrives in challenging times through the strength of its programming, technical improvements, media outreach, financial growth, board members, and volunteers. We hope everyone listening and everyone who's here, everyone watching, will come and join us as we work to build understanding and truth as a core underpinning of a healthy democracy. I thank our staff, board, volunteers, presenters, and audience for a terrific year. I thank our business and in-kind sponsors, Kaiser Permanente, University of Oregon, Peace Health, and Lane Community College, the City of Eugene, and Lane County. We especially thank KLCC for airing our forums throughout our county and beyond. It's now my pleasure to introduce our new president. Stepping up is a great community member, architect, teacher, volunteer, and leader of important efforts to provide much-needed accessible housing in Eugene. Please join me in giving a big hand and a big welcome to our new president, Karin Knutson.
My goodness, thank you so much, Kitty, for all those of you who know Kitty, and hopefully many more of you who, if you haven't had a chance to meet her, you will. Not surprising that you would be so gracious and so kind, and also such an extraordinary leader for City Club over this past couple of years. It is truly an honor, my privilege certainly, to be asked to become City Club's new president, and to have this opportunity to help to support and guide a community organization that I believe plays a critical role in our life together in community, with so many important issues ahead of us, right with us, to address. If we aren't learning together and sharing facts together, it's incredibly difficult to maintain trust, to build trust, and to work towards shared goals. And that doesn't mean that the facts and the critical context of issues aren't open for debate or discussion, in fact, quite the opposite, but that we are so proud to provide a venue for that conversation, and we invite everyone in this community to participate every week or whenever you can. We have seen in our communities and certainly in our country how misinformation and disconnection from one another corrodes our opportunities, our belief in ourselves, our trust with each other, and our work at the local level really needs, I think, to be focused on reconnecting, on learning together, and on building each other up. City Club plays an important part in that work, and the Turtles have played an important part in that work. So delighted to have two new Turtles here with us today. In the coming year, City Club will be working to expand the perspectives and the issues that are represented in our weekly forums. And if you are someone who cares about this community and about learning together, I want to not just encourage you, but to directly ask you to join the City Club Program Committee. We would love to have your voice as a part of this conversation. And if you think that there's something important, something specific that we should all be learning about together, I would ask that you would submit that suggestion through City Club's website, because we accept recommendations and ideas from community members 24/7 and discuss those at the program committee, and they are always received with interest and enthusiasm. We all benefit from a more robust, inclusive, and diverse engagement around community issues, and we all benefit when we have the opportunity to engage the same facts and discuss the difficult realities that we face. So I really invite you to join us in this work. I would be delighted to see you with us in person doing this work, and we need your help to do this work as best we can. So thank you. It's also now my distinct pleasure to introduce 3 new board members to the City Club of Eugene: Sally Bell, Miles Pendleton, and Marty Ravitz, who were elected as a part of our annual elections recently. Miles Pendleton is the branch president and executive committee chair of the Eugene Springfield NAACP. As an honor graduate of the University of Miami with local roots here in Eugene, Miles's resume is filled with honors, accolades, and awards that illustrate his drive, integrity, service to community, and passionate interest in social justice, the law, public policy, and politics. And we are grateful to have him joining our board. Thank you. Sally Bell is Executive Vice President and Executive Director of the Southern Willamette Valley Technology Association of Oregon. She is a skilled, passionate leader known for her ability to drive transformational change and scale impact through partnerships across sectors, and to effectively lead teams and manage important work. As a professional convener and connector, Sally loves the work of curating shared purpose, bringing people together and making it happen, and we will benefit greatly from the passion and experience that she brings to our community and to the City Club Board. Thank you, Sally. And lastly, Marty Ravitz, who's a former professor at the U of O in English and Women's Studies and still works in education as a consultant for high school age students. She has served on the City Club's development committee for years and has chaired it for 2 fundraising drives. She also serves on the Imagination Library Committee at the Eugene Public Library. We'll talk more about libraries in a couple of weeks. And also runs a book club for the Temple Beth Israel. We are delighted that Marty is stepping up to our board in this work. So thank you, Marty. Lastly, I just want to say, because of course in bringing on new board members, we also have to occasionally let some go. And we have been so fortunate to have Scott Coltrane serving in the last 3 years as president-elect and then president during the pandemic, and recently past president. He has given so much to this organization and shared so much leadership and been so adaptive in necessary times. We appreciate all your work, Scott, and thank you so much. And now with that, we get to the heart of our show and the program today, the 2022 Turtle Awards. Every year since 1991, the City Club of Eugene has honored 1 or 2 local folks who have stuck their neck out. Oh, yes. Just going to pause for a moment and say, there is a surprise at the end, so don't leave early. Every year since 1991, the City Club of Eugene has honored 1 or 2 local folks who have stuck their necks out for the good of community, often without much public recognition. John Van Landingham, who is here today as the first Turtle Award winner and a longtime advocate for affordable housing, will be the Master of Ceremonies for these Turtle Awards. So thank you for being here with us, John, and take it away.
Thank you, Karin. So for those of you at home who can't see me, I am limited mobility because I have a torn Achilles and surgery. So there might be some squeaking involved. The first turtles were chosen by 3 of the founders of the City Club, Gene Tate, Jerry Gatos, and Bob Moulton. The first award was given in 1991, and I was the lucky recipient. Since then, through last year, we have given Turtle Awards to 58 people from our community, and that includes Springfield as well as Eugene. And turtles actually get a turtle. This is a turtle. It's a cast iron turtle. with an engraved thing on the bottom that says Lisa Arkin. Not everybody gets Lisa Arkin, but only the lucky ones get Lisa Arkin. 2022 Turtle Award City Club of Eugene. And there's a cute story behind the turtle. Jean Tate was traveling in Santa Fe, and she saw at an art gallery a lovely little cast iron turtle. She bought it as a gift for her husband, Wayne. She took it home, gave it to Wayne, and then she and Gatos and Bob Moulton decided to do an award for the City Club, and she stole the first turtle back from Wayne and gave it to me. Since then, all the turtles have been legitimate. There are 58 people that we've honored. 27 of them are women, 31 men, 49 are still alive. The turtles, since 1994, I've been the informal chair of the Informal Turtle Committee, which has only one task. We meet once a year in February for about an hour, have a lively discussion, we argue, we disagree, we're turtles, and we pick new turtle recipients. It's the best committee you could ever imagine being on, with only one meeting, and we make people happy. So, there are some turtles here today besides me. The two presenters are turtles, Mary O'Brien, all the way from Utah, and George Russell, all the way from Eugene, or Coburg. He's from Coburg, I think. So, and then other turtles in the audience, and I can't see that well, so if I may have forgotten somebody. Oh, there's Steve Moe. Steve Moe, the mayor, former mayor of Glenwood. He's been deposed. But other turtles who are here include Kitty Piercy, Karin Knutson, Dan Bryant, Anita Johnson. Anybody else that I missed? Oh, Susan. How could I miss Susan Siegel? Oh, the Staffords, both Staffords, Molly and John. Anybody else I missed? Okay, good. That's usually an embarrassing thing. So, I want to note that also, I guess I should mention the criteria. The criteria for the award, not that we follow them slavishly, but the criteria include the following points. Fostering creative problem solving, stimulating constructive action, forging cooperative relationships, honoring diverse perspectives, sticking one's neck out for the good of the community, and someone who is underappreciated by the public. Now, you might notice that some of those are inconsistent. And so as part of our turtle debate, some of us, those of us who are a little bit more iffy, edgy than others, such as Otto Patisha, like to argue that you can't stick your neck out while working cooperatively with others. But somehow we managed to reach agreement on people to honor. So we also have, on occasion, given something we call the Order of the Turtle. And that honors somebody who has turtle-like qualities but has died before we could recognize them. We actually have a list, or I maintain a list, which is totally unofficial and unauthorized, kind of like Santa Claus's list. And these people were on that list. And so I'm going to say a few brief things about them. The first is Sally Sheklow. Sally's partner is here. I'm forgetting Sally's name, partner's name? Enid Lefton is here. And what I wanted to say about Sally is this. If you want to know more, I recommend that you look at the obituary in the February 20 Register Guard. Sally had a remarkable life. She spent her adulthood, quote, bucking the patriarchy by fully laughing, loving, and singing out loud as a Jewish lesbian activist. She was one of the founders of the improv group Wimprov, which performed for, I think, 27 years. She wrote a monthly advice column for Eugene's Lavender Network news magazine, and she wrote the Living Out column for the Eugene Weekly for 8 years. She taught a class on women's studies at PSU for 18 years. So I recommend that you look at that. The other Order of the Turtle recipient is my dear friend Norton Cabell. Norton, like me, Norton grew up in Virginia. Unlike me, his name is very prominent in Virginia families. For example, there's a Cabell Hall at the University of Virginia. There is no Van Landingham Hall at the University of Virginia. In fact, I dropped out of the University of Virginia. Norton went to an elite private prep school in Virginia and was kicked out for blowing up the chem lab. He spent 20 years as a banker in New Hampshire before realizing that that's not what he wanted to do. And he just lock, stock, and barrel moved to Oregon. He became a rental property owner. He learned about Oregon landlord-tenant law, and for many years he negotiated changes in the legislature to that law on behalf of landlords, negotiating with a tenant advocate who was me. We became very close friends. He was all about fairness and charity in the Virginia Episcopal Church mode. He was a tireless advocate for affordable housing and tenant rights. He chaired the Eugene-Lane County Housing Policy Board. When he died in September, suddenly, he was nearing the end of preparing recommendations to the Eugene City Council for additional tenant protections. That proposal is before the City Council now. It would be a great honor to Norton's memory to have them passed. So that's my introduction. And we're now going to have the two turtle recipients recognized in turn. Mary O'Brien's going to go first to recognize Lisa Arkin. And I'm going to give Mary the actual Lisa Arkin turtle to present. And say a little bit about you, too. Okay. Well, I learned long ago that you don't tell Mary O'Brien what to do. After Mary does the introduction, Lisa's going to come up and talk a little bit about why she does what she does. Hopefully not for more than hopefully about 10 minutes. And then George Russell's going to do the same with Eric Richardson.
Thank you for allowing me, physically absent 18 years now from Eugene, to speak to our selection of Lisa Arkin as one of two new turtles. Every year, the stories of new turtles are a reminder of what makes a community whole. John Van Landingham's email each spring initiating another turtle meeting is always exciting. As for Lisa Arkin, we really have Obie, my husband Bob O'Brien, to thank for detecting a certain energy, a problem-solving energy in Lisa that could be put to use in our community. Lisa had reached out to Obie because she was concerned about a process at the University of Oregon where she was a dance department professor. Obie was the then faculty president of AAUP, American Association of University Professors. He looked at her case and made two suggestions. One, she should get an attorney. Martha Walters eventually successfully represented Lisa. And two, she might be interested in the activities of Citizens for Public Accountability, or CPA. This was an all-volunteer organization that had arisen in the wake of Hyundai chip manufacturing facility being established near the wetlands in West Eugene. Citizens not being able to learn about what toxics were being used or would be emitted prompted the formation of Citizens for Public Accountability, which was working and eventually successfully to pass an amendment to the Eugene Constitution requiring all industrial facilities in Eugene to do toxics accountability reports. How much and which toxics are coming into the facility, and how much and which toxics are leaving the facility in product or air or water or waste storage. Lisa loved this problem solving. When subsequently the Oregon State Legislature banned all other municipalities in Oregon from enacting a toxics right to know law like Eugene, I worked with others to form Oregon Toxics Alliance to be a statewide advocate for toxics reform. David Monk, a CPA, Citizens for Public Accountability volunteer, became the volunteer executive director of Oregon Toxics Alliance, and Lisa became the sometimes paid staff member with David. Together, they brought OTA, eventually called Beyond Toxics, into real, effective existence. Oregon DEQ had documented a toxic flume flowing beneath the Train Song neighborhood in Eugene. Lisa walked the community with then City Councilor Andrea Ortiz. They talked with residents and smelled the foul air coming from the Baxter facility. They learned Union Pacific had dumped creosote-soaked logs in nearby wetlands. Lisa called for the air toxics emanating from the soil to be measured beneath the crawl spaces beneath residents' homes in the neighborhood. That led to requirements that Baxter remove toxic soil, and then when Baxter was finally going to have to meet regulations for toxics reduction under clear air rulemaking, which had been, in which Lisa had participated, as you know, Baxter closed. Over the past 20 years, and now, Lisa has continued to work with Turtle-like energy. I see 4 particular remarkable commitments she has made. One is her commitment to listen to and work alongside those community residents who are most exposed to toxics and least heard in the offices of state agencies and in the halls of the legislature. The second is her commitment to include other species in the work of Beyond Toxics. Like some human communities, other species are often the most exposed to toxics and the least heard. It is not common for organizations, whether business or nonprofit, to maintain such an expansive view of who matters. Third has been Lisa's commitment to powering through initially being dismissed regarding a toxics issue. The most personally challenging example of this for Lisa has been bringing the issue of aerial spraying of private forest lands in Oregon to the attention of the state. Aerially sprayed toxics cross private land boundaries, and they cross the boundaries of private human lungs. Lisa has listened to residents and heard their stories. At first, Lisa was disparaged by the forest industry and dismissed by the state legislature. Community residents were dismissed as complainers, but the stories accumulated, and others joined Lisa's efforts, and now riparian protections were enacted, and the 2022 Forest Accord is addressing numerous forest spray issues, reporting, notification requirements, and protections. And a fourth remarkable achievement of Lisa is her instinctive engagement, support, and work with staff, board, interns, and volunteers who are wonderfully diverse: Indigenous, Latinx, African American, people who were born in other countries or whose parents immigrated to these lands. Lisa has partnered with PICUN, with NAACP, and others. Beyond Toxics looks like and is who we are as a functional society. Through all this work, Lisa is gracious. Her vision of what can be accomplished is expansive. She's honest, articulate. Her work ethic is legendary. She's rooted in marginalized communities and gives voice to other species. All of this represents the best in turtledom. I've offered a picture of Lisa's turtle work from the outside. I think now she's going to give a sense of where she came from prior to the day Obi met her and how she sees her work from the inside. Lisa?
Well, it's a very cute turtle. Thank you for this honor. I feel very humble and also elated to have my community's support. Mary, thank you for that kind introduction, and I'm so touched that you and Obi traveled all the way from southern Utah to welcome this new turtle. And it's also quite appropriate that you did so because you were my first introduction to environmental activism, my mentor, and a legendary figure on whom I could orient as a North Star. It's also phenomenal and thrilling that I'm a Turtle Awardee with one of my local heroes, Eric Richardson. My fellow turtle, Eric, is someone I hold in the highest esteem, someone who I'm honored and indeed blessed to work with. About 6 years ago, Eric and I bonded professionally and as friends over our shared commitment to environmental justice. There hasn't been a moment during those 6 years where we haven't stood together to raise up the work of environmental justice, because it is the foundation to all solutions to environmental degradation and climate disaster, and I'm deeply grateful to all I've learned from Eric. During the past few months, I've gotten the chance to have a victory lap on the issue that epitomizes my perspective on environmental justice protections. I'm celebrating a new era of clean air for Bethel and Trainsong neighborhoods following the closure of the wood preservative company J.H. Baxter. The problems of extreme air and water pollution and dioxin contamination in West Eugene is our own community's poster child for environmental justice. I've been building community awareness of environmental justice for quite a while. And together with my staff member, Allison Guzman, we organized Latinx and low-income residents in West Eugene to hold Oregon's first environmental justice bus tour over a decade ago. This watershed event was the first in Oregon to frame air toxics as a social justice issue, and for our local community, put the term environmental justice solidly into our vocabulary. The bus tour revealed the disparities in health and environmental quality between Eugene's neighborhoods, including further studies showing that life expectancy in West Eugene for people living near polluters is on average 18 years less than Eugenians living in south and east of downtown areas. I continue to take tenacious action for West Eugene community members, and for example, this coming Monday, the Eugene City Council is holding a work session on chronic toxic polluters, where our recommendations to protect the public from repeat polluters like J.H. Baxter will be discussed. And with strong community leadership, regulatory action from agencies, and investment from the city, I hope that we will soon see the revitalization of Eugene's largest neighborhood as a vision coming true. Well, you know, receiving an award is an opportunity to look back on our lives and reflect on what has shaped us. Credit for my strong drive toward public service must be given to my parents, who made an indelible impression upon me and provided a rich, loving, and laughter-filled childhood. My mother held a number of jobs centered on community service, including being a social worker for the Santa Barbara County government. She was dedicated to her clients and fretted about them being lost in the institutionalized bureaucracy. She would take me along with her to bring them homemade dinners and check out their well-being if they had been sick. My father was the owner and head cook of a small fish restaurant in the center of Santa Barbara's Mexican-American neighborhood. He had a real soft spot for civic service and helping less fortunate folks. My parents opened up our home for war refugees, and our home was a place of fascinating people with interesting backstories from around the world. The unifying core of my family was celebrating our Jewish heritage and experiencing the cycles of the seasons and of life from a deeply connected Jewish perspective. I grew up very close to my grandparents, all of whom were from the old country and who had come to America to escape pogroms and ongoing violence against Jews in Eastern Europe. I was given the precious gift of learning the Hebrew language and Yiddish songs from them, and the fabric of daily life was woven by my family in the Jewish value of tikkun olam. This is a phrase that translates to mean to act ethically and to take steps to repair the world. It is a concept describing the aspiration to behave and act constructively and beneficially in the pursuit of social justice and social action, ensuring safeguards to those who may be at a disadvantage. And so this is the ethical framework in which I'm inspired to stick my neck out to advocate for justice and constructive problem solving. Now, looking back into my 20s, long before I was any kind of environmental advocate, I can see patterns that shaped the career choices and led me to become executive director of Beyond Toxics. And I hope you'll get a vivid picture in your mind from one story I'd like to share. As someone very interested in science, I entered a doctoral program in neurophysiology. I was awarded a summer fellowship working at a research institution. My assignment was to dissect rat brains and run the tissue through a process that used radioactive isotopes to identify certain neurological receptors. Now, to carry out this kind of research involved putting on ginormously thick leather gloves, catching 5 or 6 of the giant white laboratory rats with their gleaming red eyes and their snapping long teeth, decapitating them with a rat-sized guillotine, opening their skulls, extracting their hypothalamus gland, combining the brain tissue with radioactive isotopes, and running the mixtures through a centrifuge. Now, mind you, I was the only female in the entire lab, and I was the only one in the entire lab not given the standard badge to monitor radiation exposure. This was not okay, since radioactive chemicals were being used by others in the lab and completely surrounded me. When I spoke to the lab director about the others in the lab using radioactive isotopes, the accidental spills of these materials, the improper storage, and the improper disposal, I was told that, quote, I didn't know anything and to mind my own business. Protesting got no results, so I soon announced I was stepping away from the gender inequities and the environmental failures I found in doctoral science programs in that time during the 70s and 80s. I then spent 4 years as a school teacher in New Orleans to pay back my student loans. In New Orleans, I was again roused by episodes of terrible environmental contamination and the observation that people who had the money could escape pollution, and those who didn't have the means would experience the ongoing impacts. So in retrospect, I can see in my own life what I could not see at the time, how these experiences drew me to lean in to the intersection of environmental protection, advocacy, and social justice, to challenge and uproot systemic, historically racist environmental policies that place the brunt of environmental pollution on vulnerable communities. This commitment is why it's been my priority to hire a racially diverse staff and to work alongside colleagues like Eric. My staff members and colleagues teach me every day that environmental problems cannot be separated from the issues of racial justice and equity. My staff has taught me that equity is not about a toolkit or something on paper. It is about fundamentally shifting our hearts and opening our eyes to seeing and challenging the broken system. It starts with lifting up voices of environmental justice communities and making sure that those who have historically been excluded and affected are the very ones at the decision-making table and being consulted. Partnering with my staff has taught me how to better center Indigenous people and honor their practices of direct engagement with the land to deepen our relationships with animal and plant communities. This connection to the land inspires our staff relationships to focus on the practices based on kindness, appreciation, acknowledgement, and deep collaborative partnerships. So there's so many things I want to share, but in closing, I just want to thank you all so much for the honor of joining the illustrious group of Turtle awardees and for the opportunity to share what inspires me to pursue environmental justice. And I also want to thank my staff and mentors who teach me and join with me to advance equity, inclusion, and justice as the pathway to rebutting our failing environmental regulatory systems and working for a new paradigm based on deeper connections to the land and her gifts. Thank you.
I guess I need to pull this mask down. George Russell, proud City Club member since 1992, and it's my honor to present Turtle to Eric Richardson. But before I do that, I want to say that my co-presenter, Carmen Yamara Urbina, is not here, but she's missed. But she's not here because of an emergency at work that required her to be there this morning. So my sympathies go to her and the staff at ODE for the loss that they had yesterday. While I'm extending sympathies, I want to send my heart out to the people of Buffalo, New York, and the victims of the racist and white supremacist shooting there that continues to be a symbol of the problems that we have in this country and to which Eric Richardson has so profoundly dedicated himself to see the erasure of. I also want to thank John Van Landingham for being here and his work with the Turtles, and extend my sincere congratulations to Lisa for being recognized as a Turtle. Today we're here also to honor a person who speaks truth to power, even though sometimes that may result in discomfort for him. Someone who gets people to question their assumptions about race, about history and culture. Someone who is a champion, an outspoken champion for social justice and for educational equity. A person who is committed, very strongly to community engagement and community empowerment through collective impact, and using that as a model to get there. Now, I'm talking about Eric Richardson, who I've actually known for quite some time. But the piece that first comes to mind is when I was on the board of the NAACP, the local chapter of the NAAC, the branch, and we were meeting at the time in Dan's church in the basement. And I was at the time also the chair of the Elections and Nominations Committee. And we were having a board meeting, and Eric was there. And we were talking about it was time to get a new president for the branch. And my observations, having watched Eric in action for some of the previous meetings, and the energy that he exhibited, and the passion and the commitment for the cause of the NAACP, caused me to say, Eric, would you consider running for president of the branch? And he did, and he was elected as the president of the local branch. And in that role, he performed admirably and led the branch in a direction that was sometimes different from what the traditional values and perspectives of NAACP members envisioned. And let me give you some of the examples. One was he took on the national office. When they said, no, the local branch cannot become a grantee, and put in for money from state government and the Department of Education and set up and hire staff. Eric challenged that, and the branch went on to apply for and partner with local school districts and the Lane ESD to address African American student success. Now, let me tell you the backstory behind that, because I was a part of the group that put that together. We were looking at grants to help African American students succeed in school. And the group that was putting it together with the Department of Education decided that a school district had to have more than 5% African American students in order to be eligible to receive the grant funds. Now, you can imagine what happened in the first round of the grants. The only people that got grants, only districts, only communities that got grants were in the Metro Portland area, because there was an assumption that you had to have 30, 40% African American students, even more than 10 or 15% African American students, in order to have issues around the success of African American students. So Eric, along with the NAACP and some others, challenged that and said, first, a community like Eugene, where it may say we have only 3% African American students, if you know the community, you know that a lot of the kids that are seen as African American in this community are biracial or multiracial. And how do those fall into the count? And second, even if there's only one African American kid in a classroom, he can be racially targeted and bullied because of his or her race. So Eric challenged them and said, you need to look at modifying that criteria so that a place like Eugene is eligible. He also challenged assumptions about the role of the NAACP in working with Lisa and outside of the traditional view of only working on specific racially black, in particular, concerns and issues, and indicated and got us to believe that that is an issue for our communities, and that African American communities are affected by environmental injustice and climate change. So he partnered with Lisa and Beyond Toxics to create an initiative and work through the NAACP around those issues and the crisis occurring in communities of colors. Eric also dedicated himself to making relations in our community better by stepping outside the traditional role of the NAACP. He took on challenges. He asked folks to look and think differently on the issues that affected the African American community. And he did that oftentimes with being criticized, but he handled that criticism with grace and class. So I'm pleased to welcome Eric to the Turtles and to have him come up and accept this. And Eric, give us some comments.
Well, this is quite an honor to be here today and to be able to follow in the footsteps of fellow Turtles, and George Russell particularly, understanding that as an African American man in Lane County in the state of Oregon, that there are few opportunities such as this for that voice to be heard. And I just want to acknowledge that George Russell has been part of our community doing good work, standing as a voice of an African American man, but one of reason and one who cared about all people in our community through your service. So thank you, George, for what you've done for our community. We need examples such as George, such as Lisa, such as all of the Turtles who have been mentioned today, because this is what makes community. It's leadership and it's family. As we experience the hardships that come with the political and racial questions that are whirling around our society today in the world, you know, I take solace in that we have institutions such as the City Club that are meant to bring people together in a dignified, safe space to have conversations about policy, about neighbors, about aspirations, about problems we have in our community, because this is how we find solutions. This is how we build families, that we listen empathetically. We try to hear about solutions going forward. We have a purpose, and this purpose is something that I like to talk about today. As an African American man growing up in the United States of America, I've known our history to be one of trial, one based on an idea that we can be better than we are. Even the founders of the Constitution, the founders of this nation, understood that this was an aspirational project that we are on. And even though trauma is part of my life, even though trauma is part of the life of the native peoples on whose land we live today, the Kalapuya Ilihi, their elders, our elders, my inner spirit, my soul tells me to hold on to a path of decency, hold on to a path of balance, hold on to a path of service, because those who are most needy in our families and those who are most needy in our society need us to. We need to hold on to something that is solid. And sometimes those things that are solid are in fact ideals. Ideals that can transcend time and can transcend even our nuclear family and create a bigger family. And this bigger family is our society. You know, I have a love for the United States of America and the ideals that this country embodies for the world. And like I said before, it's very aspirational. But these are ideas that have been recognized throughout the world as worthy ideas, worthy of people's sacrifice, in fact. Very soon we're going to be marking another Memorial Day. We're memorializing those people who have put down their lives, not just in uniform, but in their day-to-day lives, caring for children, caring for those who are less fortunate themselves, caring for elderly, so that we can have a balanced and safe and healthy community and family. I keep talking about family because these days we need to understand, how can we create more unity? How can we create more balance, more togetherness, and love for ideas, love for one another's potential? Racism has been described as one of America's #1 problems. It was the issue of the 20th century, and we were never able to fully deal with it in the 20th century. So here we are, 2022. And I just want to acknowledge again, you know, the loss of life in Buffalo, New York, of innocent life, and the anguish that the violence comes from. This is an anguish of isolation. And I want to be here today putting out a hand of brotherhood and sisterhood and saying that no one is alone and we can be together, but it has to be in love. It has to be in curiosity. It has to be in self-reflection. So I think that the City Club as a civic institution has a big role to play in bringing people and ideas together and upholding democratic values such as commonality, such as the idea that we will listen to the other side and we will try to find balance and a way forward that gives dignity to all people. And I also want to say that today is a day that we should also consider how we can move forward recognizing the value of multiculturalism and diversity, recognizing the value of hearing from one's past and one's ancestors and bringing forth the best of those stories and instructions. And so today I ask that Native peoples, people of Asian and Pacific Island descent and African and Black people consider joining the City Club. Consider joining local civic institutions, neighborhood associations. Consider being a voice on the parent association. Consider stepping up into local politics. Consider serving on boards, because this is how we build family. This is how we build community. We come together with our best intentions. And someone just recently talked about the word intention as a medical term. And that medical term is, an intention is the act of healing. When a wound has intention, the wound is healing. So as we talk about our intentions, we have to be clear that we are talking about healing. So our intentions behind racial justice, social justice, are not to bring anyone down, but it's actually to heal and to build up the potentials of our communities, of our organizations, and of our nation most of all. We have a potential in this nation to lead on environmental climate justice, to lead on racial issues, and furthermore, the city of Eugene, with leaders such as Lisa Arkin, have shown that we in this small space can lead on a global level. So we understand that race is a factor that sometimes we dig too much into. If there is no race, then let's get to the work of cooperation, of treating all people with dignity. Domestic violence happens within a family who are the same race, who are the same blood. This kind of treatment, this kind of behavior in our family, in our communities, maybe starts at home and spreads out into the community. So what I ask today is that we look inwardly. Let's look at ourselves as individuals, as part of a great community, as part of a greater state, as part of a great nation, as part of a global community that has a responsibility to look out for one another, especially now as we see the ill effects of climate change happening more rapidly all around us, the ill effects of ignorance and racism as they increase all around us. It's going to take people being intentional about healing, about reaching out a hand of brotherhood and sisterhood, and asking the hard questions of oneself, and being able to admit to oneself that we ourselves can do better. And ultimately, this is a proposition about the vessel. What vessel am I talking about? I'm talking about the soul. Dr. Martin Luther King talked about the soul, and he was talking about the soul of our nation, and how we as individuals are just a reflection of that, because the nation is made up of individuals, of people. People are the soul of this nation. And if we ourselves are sick, are unhealthy, or our soul is in another place, then therefore our nation will be in that space. And we have a great responsibility to bring ourselves and our nation to a place of harmony, of peace, of trust, so that we can use our great resources, our great minds, our great hearts for the benefit of a creation that is beautiful, that has been abundant for many years. And we want to keep that and see that for our children as we go forward. So like I said, civic engagement is about intentions. It's about bringing the ideas of others and democratic values of hearing others' voice, balancing one's needs with the needs of others, being able to have true self-reflection, and being able to aspire to one's highest self. Decency is not weakness. Decency is a way for the soul to verify all that is good with life, and to make sure that our youngsters can enjoy that as well. So let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater when we talk about diversity, equity, or white supremacy, or we talk about a lack of trust between the races. Let's understand that we can talk about these difficult issues and at the same time love one another. Because what it is we're trying to do is to perfect our soul as we go forward. And so I'm not really a religious person, but I like to equate spirituality with civic life. We have a purpose in life, and sometimes that might just be to help our fellow human being along their path, and vice versa, be lifted up in our path along the way. So as we move forward, my appeal as a turtle, someone who is, sometimes we move slow, we do stick our necks out, but my appeal is that we all do slow down, and that we all take the time to understand that we share a beautiful creation that is worth a little bit of sacrifice from us, and that is worth our time and our participation. And I just hope that we can move together as one nation, recognizing our differences, valuing those best practices that have come to us through our ancestors so that we can make our ancestors proud, and putting down those type of practices and ideas through self-reflection that we know do not serve us any longer. January 6th is a symptom of division, of racism that has gone unchecked. I think America does best when we love one another, when we understand we are not perfect, and I think when we listen to our elders. In this case, our elders in America are the first peoples. Many of the words that we have heard from the elders of the First Nations should be heeded in this day. So I move on and just want to thank the City Club leadership. I want to thank the fact that we've had several wonderful leaders who have shown through their dedication to community what it takes to have a really lively, thriving community that is intellectual based, that actually uses its mind, that cares about dialogue. And so Corinne, Scott Coltrane, Kitty Piercy, that's a long line of very engaged people. And I just want to continue to support all people who give of their time and their love for community, and encourage young people, people of color, of all backgrounds, to let's work together. Let's find a space where we can bring our authentic selves, but bring our best selves, one that is open for dialogue, one that is that understands that all people have within them a spark of creation that should be valued and heard. And let's not shy away from this hard task of dealing with mental health. Racism is a public health crisis. Racism adds to the mental anguish of our children and of our families and of our community. And I look forward to moving through looking at the public health aspects of racism, the policy aspects of racism, and how this really negatively affects the soul of our nation. And so I think as we go forward, I will continually be here to just talk about how we can create unity through civic engagement, through civic dialogue, through civic institutions such as the City Club, and then be here to encourage people to be involved in our community and to bring your authentic selves. And let's support education. Public education is very important. The public institutions are very important, but they take informed, dedicated individuals from our community to make this happen. So I am just encouraging us, let's put down our racial divisions. Let's be open to the understanding that not everybody's on the same economic platform, that people are dealing with trauma at all levels of our community, and that if we have the wherewithal, we can make a difference by being involved in our communities, with our neighbors, in our institutions. So I just thank you, and on behalf of my family, my mother, my father, my wife, Tamara Richardson, who grew up, her maiden name is Tamara Anderson. She grew up in Eugene as an adopted African-American child into a white family in 1968. She experienced racism of all levels in Eugene, graduated from North Eugene. She's raised 5 children here gracefully. She still works at the Sacred Heart Hospital full-time. And she is an inspiration because she has been graceful. She's dealt with racism in a way that I look up to. She's a mother of 5 children, and she has taught her children to be decent, to be open, but to be unapologetically black, but to make sure that that definition of black is based on best practices from my ancestors and culture. And I would ask that everyone else do the same going forward. And so with that, I thank you all for the opportunity to speak to this Turtles Award committee and to the City Club of Eugene and all its members. Ashe is what we say on the continent. And I just want to say thank you all for your time listening to this brother speak about his heart and community. Thank you.
This has been our May 20th, 2022 program, annual election results meeting and the Turtle Awards. Thank you so much, Mary O'Brien. Thank you so much, Lisa Arkin. Thank you, George Russell. Thank you, Eric Richardson. Thank you, John Van Landingham, for being here today and sharing all that you did with our community and calling us forward in the work we have together. I promised that I had one more important thing to do, and it's one of my favorite things to do. We are going to say some more thank yous and give a couple of gifts. There's a lot of work that's been happening in these past couple of years at City Club that maybe has looked effortless, has been invisible, and in fact, the work of producing this program every week, pivoting to deliver a remote program through a global pandemic, providing live stream and remote and access across multiple platforms to these conversations, that has taken an enormous amount of work from a group of individuals who are never in front of the camera and are never in front of the microphone. It also takes an enormous amount of work to share everything that we do in the club each week and in these conversations each week. So I need to take a particular moment right now to thank City Club's media committee and our amazing audio-visual team. This includes Marilyn Milne, Ralph Pledger, Jim Dotson, and Paul Thompson for their extraordinary work making this happen, making this magic happen every week. And we have some thank yous for them that I will share. So please, first. I need to also offer a special thank you to Paul Thompson, who after many years of quarterbacking our audio engineering work at City Club and being an incredible part of this team, will be retiring at the end of this program year. I hear that there's something about a James Webb telescope involved or something, and that's pretty compelling, looking to the center of the universe or the beginning of time. So we understand that Paul has other work to do, but he has helped us to be so crisp and so clear and has been so thoughtful in his work every week. So thank you especially to Paul. And then finally, one last special thank you to Kitty Piercy, our outgoing president. It has been a true pleasure to work with you and alongside you in City Club's efforts. I know that everyone who engages with you feels the same. The devotion that you give to your work and the ability that you have to always find a new way to give and a new way to keep pushing forward is an inspiration to everyone. And I have appreciated you so much and I'm grateful for your service. So thank you also, Kitty Piercy. And there are all sorts of presents to deliver, but we will get to that in just a moment. Lastly, I need to recognize the sponsors of City Club. Our diamond sponsors today, Kaiser Permanente, which exists to provide high-quality, affordable healthcare services and improve the health of our members in the communities that we serve. More information is available at kp.org. The University of Oregon has helped Oregonians question critically, think logically, reason effectively, communicate clearly, act creatively, and live ethically since 1876, and you can find more information at uoregon.edu. Peace Health has been proud to serve Eugene, Lane County, and beyond as hometown healthcare provider for more than 80 years. The Peace Health mission is to keep you and your family healthy, and you can learn more about Peace Health at peacehealth.org. I also need to thank Lane Community College, which transforms lives through learning, LCC provides comprehensive, accessible, high-quality educational opportunities that promote student success, and you can find more information at lanecc.edu. We are grateful for the generous support from the City of Eugene and Lane County, and we would like to acknowledge our Sapphire sponsor, Summit Bank, an independent community bank headquartered here in Eugene that serves businesses and professionals throughout Eugene, Springfield, and Central Oregon. You can learn more by visiting sbko.bank. Today's gold sponsors are Sacred Earth Botanicals and the Network Charter School, and thank you, of course, to our in-kind sponsors, KRVM 91.9 Radio, Pack Info and Simplified Computing LLC, and Dotson's Photography. A special thank you to KLCC FM 89.7 for airing City Club programs on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Certainly, we look forward to seeing you all here and also to listening next week. We will take a break for the Memorial Day holiday and return on June 3rd with a program for book lovers of all ages about our library system, enriching library services during the pandemic and beyond. Please join us for that. A final thank you again, and a congratulations and a welcome to our new turtles, Lisa Arkin and Eric Richardson. Welcome to our new City Club board members, Sally Bell, Miles Pendleton, and Marty Ravitz. Thank you all for being with us here today. It's a delight to see you. Be well, stay safe, take care. Thank you.